My name is Anne LEMAISTRE. I'm working now in UNESCO Cambodia. I have a double background, we could say, as international law and also history of art and conservation of built heritage. What I would like to draw your attention on is that I'm going to present to you the it's very ambitious world heritage of water and heritage all over the planet, if I may say so. So we'll make a big trip all together around the world. And I would like, in fact, to recall that heritage was not meant to be heritage. Heritage was the answer to sustainability. I mean, this is the most adapted and sustainable answer to daily life of populations. So it's deeply rooted in the cultural values of civilizations. So now that we are facing all these challenges, I think it's time, in fact, to have this interdisciplinary approach, in fact, to be able to mitigate the major challenges heritage is facing now. So what I would like to show to you is that the water has been the mainspring of early civilizations. In fact, Dr. Febri Hassan, in his book, Water Management and Early Civilization, defends the thesis that water shortages had been the engine of the motivation of societies to find new solution for water scarcity and water security. But we could say the same, in fact, for excess of water caused by monsoon rains and regular floodings, we could say, that have motivated the same innovative engineering solutions. So we could say that water is the mainspring of early civilization to bring human innovations to manage scarcity and excess of water. Also social and economic transformation with new working methods such as creations or development of cooperative, religious practices, rituals, but also normative and ethical formulation with rules concerning the daily use of water. I want to draw your attention also that water has also accompanied the human evolution per se. As you know, one of the most ingenious developments in human evolution has been the cultivation of cereals, leading to the emergence of modern human ancestors some 16,000 years ago. So it was the dawn of food production, and agriculture has become the main dominant way of life all over the planet. It has shaped the landscapes with irrigation canals, drains, embankments, and terraces. Then technical advances were introduced in the medieval times, with the mills and water power become the most important source of energy, allowing the Industrial Revolution. Based on this, I would like to take you for a trip around the world to explore the diversity of typologies of water heritage and to visit some of these cultures emerging from the spring of water. For the sake of organization, my presentation will follow the UNESCO Cultural Conventions to cover all aspects of heritage: underwater cultural heritage, intangible heritage, and world heritage. All of them are facing different types of threats, and I would like to synthesize them at the end of each typology. For the sake also of clarity, I will illustrate each category with few representative examples, knowing that it is a reduced view of the incredible wealth of water heritage. I couldn't hide this convention on the protection of underwater heritage, because it encompasses all the traces lying underwater. It's a new convention by UNESCO, adopted in 2001. And within the framework of this convention, I won't spend too much time on that, heritage is mainly shipwrecks, so ancient vessels, lying underwater, as well as archaeological sites such as lost cities. Hydraulic heritage, as I was telling you, has generated tradition, rituals, knowledge, and here you have some of the traditional chanting of the river in Mali, Baji Goroba. Something which is also extremely interesting is we were talking about sharing of waters and rules. And here this is tribunals of Spain, which are traditional law courts for water management. And in fact, you have two. These date back from the Al-Andalus period, which is 9th to 13th century. And you have two main tribunals of the Council of Wise Men of Murcia and another one in Valencia. And they are, in fact, recognized by the Spanish law. Inspiring authority and respect, these two courts, whose members are elected democratically, set disputes related to water distributions orally in a transparent and impartial manner. And as you can see, this is done in public. So let's move now to the 1972 convention, which is a World Heritage Convention. It covers natural and cultural heritage. For natural heritage, I have identified rivers, streams, springs, lakes, wetlands, waterfalls, marine sites. And I will show you some of them. Here you have the three parallel rivers, in fact, I wanted to take as an example. This is in China, and these are the three rivers of the Yunnan, the Yangtze, the Mekong, and the Salween rivers, which run approximately parallel north to south through steep gorge, which in places are 3,000 meters deep and are bordered by peaks of 6,000 meters high. Still the three parallel rivers of Yunnan. Here I wanted to illustrate the waterfalls. Here you have Iguazu waterfalls, which is a semi-circular waterfalls of 80 meters high and diameter of 2,700 meters. It's situated at the border of Argentina and Brazil. And if you can see, it's made up of many cascades, producing vast sprays of water. It is, as you can see, one of the most spectacular waterfalls in the world. Here, the marine sites are illustrated by the Great Barrier Reefs in Australia. As you can see, the Great Barrier Reef is a site of remarkable variety and beauty. It contains the world's largest collection of coral reefs, with 400 types of coral, 1,500 species of fish, and 4,000 types of mollusk. This is one of the most extensive coral reef system of the planet. You can see it is really of superlative beauty and a spectacular scenery. Well, so what are the conservation issues of all these natural heritage sites related to water? We could say pollution, loss of habitat for species, overfishing, such as illegal and uncontrolled fisheries, invasive species, uncontrolled development, illegal dredges, for example, dams, climate change, in particular for the Great Barrier Reef with the coral bleaching. Let's move now to the water cultural heritage, per se. I have distinguished here the different engineering systems that structured and accompanied the human evolution of the planet. So the water supply and irrigation system, the transportation system, the water power system, and turning water into land. In terms of water supply, we always think that the Romans were the first, in fact, introducing the aqueducts, but not at all. In fact, this was brought by the Assyrian, so what is now Iraq, in the city of Nineveh, 700 before Christ, the Assyrians, in fact, were able to build a big aqueduct canals of 55 kilometers long. So there are some remainings of this aqueduct now. To illustrate water supplies with the Roman ones, I mean, I have chosen the Pont du Gard in France, which crosses the Gard river. And it's also one impressive structure with three levels. It's a technical and artistic masterpiece. In terms of irrigation system, I have chosen the one in China called Dujiang irrigation system. Why is it interesting? Is that because it consists of a watershed divided into two parts. The inner river is for the irrigation and the outer river for flood discharge. So during the rainy season, excess water runs into the outer rivers, thus preventing floodings. And it also serves as filter for sand and stones. This system has been operating at low cost and in a highly reliable manner for nearly 2,000 years now. And it's always mentioned as, we could say, miracle in the story of water control. What I want to say is that it follows the natural flow of water, and it is being used without building any dams also. In terms of irrigation system, I could not resist, in fact, to show you this Onge Ani rice terraces, because they have been inscribed on the World Heritage list this summer at the last World Heritage Committee session in Phnom Penh, by the way, in Cambodia. And this is, in fact, it existing for 1,000 years, more or less. And the Hani people have developed this complex system of channels and spectacular terraces to bring water from the forested mountain tops to the terraces. They are cultivating red rice, and they have also integrated in this farming system that involves buffaloes, cattle, ducks, fish, and eels. So you can see there is farming production associated with the rice crops. Another system, which is quite extraordinary also, which is a Shushtar hydraulic system in Iran. It's dating, in fact, we can see that the Iranians were able to harness the water for many centuries before Christ. In that case, this is dating the time of Darius the Great, 5th century BC. And in fact, it's once again, it's a system of two diversion canals. One is, in fact, enables to plant orchards and farming of a big area. And the other canals, in fact, provide water to the city of Shushtar, such via a series of tunnels and water supplies to mills and fountains that you can admire here. One of the central part of the Shushtar hydraulic system is really what we call the Salasel Castle. This is more or less the operation center of this entire hydraulic system. And it is composed of a tower where the water level is measured, and you can see dams, bridges, basins, and mills. Let's move now, not far from there, to another irrigation system, which is quite famous, the Aflaj in Oman, which is in fact a system with an irrigation system allowing the sharing of water in villages and towns. So we call this in Oman Aflaj, we call it Kanat in Iran. We call it Guettara in Morocco. All of these are irrigation systems being covered or at the air, in fact. And they are in Oman, in fact, exceptionally well preserved. You see the canals here. The main problem of all these irrigation systems, in fact, is really the lack of maintenance, the destruction or modernization of the canals, the discontinuity of agricultural practices. Let's move now to the transportation system. You have here an example, which is the Canal du Midi in France, which is 360 kilometer network of navigable waterways. It links the Mediterranean Sea with the Atlantic Ocean through locks, aqueducts, bridges, tunnels. And in fact, it was built in the 17th century. It has paved the way to the Industrial Revolution. And it was quite a revolution in terms of transportation. Another one, which is La Louvière in Belgium. This canal in Belgium is composed of 4 hydraulic boat lifts, meaning to be able to carry, in fact, the boats at a higher level. And it is one of the most famous industrial monuments. It was built at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, and they are the only lift of this style that are still working in their original condition. So it's also, together with the canal itself, there are many associated structures. They constitute a remarkably well-preserved and complete example of 19th century industrial landscape. After having seen the transportation system, let's have a look on what we call water power system. Here you have the Upper Arts water management system of the mines of Ravensberg in Germany. I know there are some German colleagues there. And so these mines, in fact, have been developed by the Cistercian monks and have been using the force of water to extract non-ferrous metals. It's made of extremely complex but coherent system of artificial ponds, small channels, tunnels, and underground drains. So it enables the development of water power for use in mining and metallurgical processes. In the same spirit of using the water power, we have the Derwent Valley Mills in UK. This has been built, in fact, in central England during the 18th, 19th century. And these are cotton mills, and were added to that, in fact, some silk mills, in fact, after. This has, of course, boosted the entire economy of the region. Turning water into land. In fact, this is what you have been visited yesterday and was explained to you with the LEMAISTRE polder. So I will not reiterate that the wind power was used to drain the polders in the 15th century through the use of wind-driven water pumping mills, making possible to drain larger lakes. Let's move now to another typology of heritage. We have been looking everything which was linked with engineering system. Then we'll see the water gardens, and then we'll see the water cities. So for the moment, in terms of water gardens, I have identified, knowing that it has reduced views of what is existing, the Persian Paradise Gardens, the Palace Water Gardens, and the Tomb Water Gardens. The Persian Gardens. This, in fact, takes their roots in the times of Cyrus the Great also, 6th century before Christ. And the one inscribed on the World Heritage List, in fact, include 9 gardens in the different 9 provinces of Iran. And it illustrates, in fact, the adaptation of the different gardens. I'm going to go very quickly, but they are always shared into 4 sectors. And they are supposed to symbolize the Eden and the 4 Zoroastrian elements of sky, earth, water, and plants. I'm going to go relatively quickly with the Palace Water Gardens, which is a 17th century gardens with a very complex water system. Which illustrate, I would say, the romantic gardens in Germany. I'm not going into the details of the cascades, the artificial waterfalls, the great fountains, and the high geyser. The Tomb Water Gardens, in fact, this has been inspired really by the Persian gardens, and here you have the Taj Mahal. Which, of course, one of the most admired masterpieces. And it has been a mausoleum in white marble built in 17th century by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan in the memory of his favorite wife. What these water gardens are facing is really the lack of maintenance and tourism pressure. I'm going to accelerate a little bit with the water cities, showing you the city of Mazagan here in Morocco. Here's the town of Linqian in China, which is in fact a very clever system of traditional water system with 3 wells. The first well is for drinking, the second well is for cleaning vegetable, and the third well is for washing clothes. And this, in fact, has been, this town is existing like that since the 13th century. Here we have Venice and its lagoon. I'm not going to enter into the details of that. It has been shown to you, knowing there is now a major investment in Venice. In terms of climate change, I just wanted to say that during the 20th century in Venice, we have acknowledged 10 major floodings. And what we can say is that out of these 10 major floodings, 8 occurred after the 60s. So just to show you that the recurrence of the flooding are taking place, in fact, this last decade. I'm not going to expand too much on Amsterdam, which is a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering, town planning, and rational program of construction, as we will be visited it tomorrow afternoon, no? I think. So let's move now to the hydraulic city of Angkor in Cambodia. I just would like to, the Khmer civilization, as you know, was existing between the 9th and the 14th century. Angkor is one of the most important archaeological of Southeast Asia. And it covers a big surface of 400 square kilometers and consists of temples, hydraulic structures, basin dikes, reservoir, canals, and communication routes. So for many centuries, Angkor was the capital of the Khmer Empire, with very impressive monuments and temples such as Angkor Wat, Bayon, Prakan, Taprom. And what I would like to show to you is that we are really facing, you are in front of a hydraulic city which has been expanding over time. Everything is coming from the Mount Coulenc, which is in the north of the drawing here, and the Siem Reap River, in fact, is flowing down. What I just would like to explain to you is that the sacred character of this of the city of Angkor is really based on the fact that the water is flowing from the Mount Coulenc in the north of Angkor, and in the riverbed, all the riverbed is carved with linga, which is a representation of Shiva. And this is, in fact, fecundating the water, which is later on going onto the Angkorian plain, in fact, to give birth to the Angkorian civilization. So from the symbolic point of view, it's a very nice image. You can see here some moats which are around the Angkor Wat temple, but these moats are around each temple, in fact, because they do represent the primordial ocean around the Mount Meru, which is in the center, the temple, which is the residences of the gods. Here you have the Angkor Wat temple, which is one of the most well-known. You can see some other hydraulic structures in Angkor. You have here, because we have a problem in Cambodia, which is the alternance of the dry and the rainy seasons. So during the rainy season, the challenge is really to control the water flows. And when, in fact, during the dry season, the water needs to be kept for irrigation purposes. So these big reservoirs called barai were, in fact, built in the 11th, 12th century. And you can see that their dimensions are very impressive because they are 8 kilometers long with 2 kilometers wide. You have here in each big reservoir barai, you have a little temple for religious purposes just in the right middle of it, but also it's a way to control the aids of the water. Irrigation system here, paddy fields in Angkor, because Angkor is a living site, knowing that we have 112 villages scattered all around the park, which corresponds more or less to 120,000 inhabitants. And you have the river finishing its course in the Siem Reap city town. So what are the main conservation issues of Angkor and this hydraulic system? We could say the lack of maintenance, the deforestation of the Mount Coulenc I was mentioning before, the temple subsidence because of the lower level of water table, climate change with floodings. So what has been undertaken by the Cambodian authorities, and which will be presented to you by my colleague Dr. Angpe here in the room, is really the rehabilitation of the water heritage in Angkor. First of all, to preserve the landscape and this fragile ecosystem, but also to contribute to the local development, especially from the irrigation point of view. I'm going to show you all the international studies and programs, in fact, which have been my references, in fact, for this presentation. And knowing that considering the diversity of heritage and the growing challenges we are facing, I think there is space, in fact, to make a specific international study on water and heritage. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.